I think we're looking at the Libya model of 2003-2004.
No wonder North Korea is getting cold feet on the US deal. Who wants to be the next Libya? Is John Bolton trying to warn his own boss, President Trump, to be a little bit more hardline when dealing with a rogue state? We get the perspective of the White House, the State Department and Korea. Hello, good evening. All politics, they say, is personal, and the North Korean leadership has just illustrated the point rather keenly. Kim Jong-un has warned they're now reconsidering their meeting with President Trump next month and pointed the finger in no unwavering terms at Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton. In a statement, they took aim at Mr. Bolton, known for his hardline stance on foreign policy, and admitted they couldn't hide their feeling of repugnance towards him. At the heart of this fallout lies Trump's insistence that the Korean peninsula must denuclearize. Tonight, the US president has stayed uncharacteristically quiet, no furious tweets, but an admission he will have to wait and see what happens next. So is the foreign policy coup of the year still going ahead? And what will those two larger-than-life characters do next? Here's John Sweeney.
This is a graphic novel like no other. Back in the day in Gotham City, there arose from the wrong side of the tracks a superhero who became the most powerful man on earth, the Trumpster. He had lots of enemies, but the most feared of all was Rocket Man. His nuclear bombs got bigger, his missiles kept on getting closer and closer to the mainland USA. Last year, the Trumpster hit out.
We will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
But Rocket Man wasn't backing down, telling the Trumpster, rather than frightening or stopping me, that the path I chose is correct, and that is the one I have to follow to the last. The Trumpster retaliated, sick puppy, obviously a madman. Rocket Man fired back that the Trumpster was a mentally deranged US dotard. Suddenly this year, hopes for peace started to grow. Rocket Man met his counterpart on the Korean peninsula from across the DMZ. There was talk of a powwow between the two superheroes. Now, Rocket Man doesn't want to give up his nukes or his rockets. Tonight, the Trumpster risks looking like he's been played for a fool. The driver for North Korea's change of direction were comments made by Trump's box-fresh national security advisor, John Bolton.
I think we're looking at the Libya model of 2003-2004. We're also looking at what North Korea itself has committed to previously.
What Bolton didn't spell out was how the Libyan model ended up for its ruler. But the North Koreans are all too well aware of Gaddafi's end. In an angry statement, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister said it is absolutely absurd to dare compare the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, a nuclear weapons state, to Libya. On Mr. Bolton, he did not hold back. We do not hide our feelings of repugnance towards him.
John Bolton was being the opposite of diplomatic. He wasn't trying to be diplomatic. He was trying to ensure that the summit would fail.
As you'd expect from the world's most totalitarian state, the North Koreans are much better at message discipline. But they have conflicting policy goals too.
I think it's really hard to predict these things. But I do think that there are some big benefits in getting rid of nuclear weapons for North Korea. There'll be sanctions being lifted. There'll be a new relationship with the United States. There'll be a new relationship with South Korea. It'll be much easier for China. There are some big wins for them if they can pull it off.
War in the next 6 months is probably in the area of 25%. I still think there's a probability that the summit will get back on track. Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, wants it to. President Trump wants it to. Bolton, I don't think, does. So probably it'll get back on track, but we're in a dangerous situation.
Michael D'Antonio has written a biography of Donald Trump.
I think Donald Trump's view of the world was formed in the 1950s during his childhood and shaped in many ways by comic books and superheroes. In his mind, he is the primary character moving world history. So Kim would be Rocket Man. The president would consider himself to be a kind of Superman. And in a way, this dynamic may work out for both of them.
There's some black comedy in the clash between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, two characters who could have been drawn for each other. But the ending could get so much darker.
Well, that was John Sweeney. We were hoping to be joined by a guest with insight into the Trump campaign in Washington tonight. Technology there has let us down, but we can speak to Balbina Huang. She served as a senior advisor to US Ambassador Christopher Hill during his negotiations with North Korea, and she joins us from Seoul. Balbina Huang, great to have you on Newsnight. Just take us, if you can, inside the North Korean mindset now. What do you think has provoked this?
Well, I don't think it's even really a provocation. I think this is quite a clear and actually a very calculated statement. We should understand that, first of all, this was a series of statements that came out this morning. KCNA, the official spokesperson for the North Korean government, first came out and stated that it was going to cancel the first of a meetings scheduled with the South Korean government. Now, this was in reaction to joint exercises being staged between the United States and South Korea. These were scheduled in advance, and this was something that North Korea had not objected to, in fact, had agreed would accept as part of the recent inter-Korean agreement. This was clearly meant to provoke South Korea and to sort of upset what President Moon had clearly been riding on as a wave of popular optimism in South Korea. And again, meant to sort of try to destabilize, I think, South Korean public. It was then quickly followed by a statement from Foreign Minister Kim Gae-kwan. Now, it's important to understand this is a gentleman who has been involved for the last several decades in directly negotiating with the previous 4 presidents of the United States regarding specifically the nuclear programs. And so this is a man, by the way, in the foreign ministry, which is the diplomatic corps of the North Korean government. He is not the man that is going to meet President Trump or scheduled to meet President Trump. And he's the man that was directly involved with John Bolton during the President Bush years. Remember, this is President Bush, and this is John Bolton of the neocons. And this is this is the axis of evil.
Right. So they bear a grudge, presumably, towards John Bolton. We know that from the statement. Is your sense that President Trump overplayed his hand here?
Well, no, I don't think so. And I think it's important to understand that President Trump is one of the most unusual presidents that the world has ever seen in the United States. When we say the Trump administration, there really is no Trump administration. President Trump is a lone wolf in the sense that he is now acting alone. And I think there is an administration. It's actually more disciplined now. This is the Trump administration 2.0. Pompeo, Bolton. These are now a little bit more disciplined than the previous. But President Trump is much more comfortable acting alone. And I think we just saw that, 2 days ago, when it seems in the last month.
Balbina, I'm just going to bring in Scotty Nell Hughes, who's a Conservative commentator who can join us on this exact point now. Do you feel, Scotty, that John Bolton has knocked this off course a little bit for Donald Trump? Do you think that was deliberate or a mistake?
Well, whether it's deliberate or a mistake, it has happened. But I think this is just a normal reaction that we've seen North Korea do before. This is a part of the playbook. They did it back in 1994 before their talks then. This is just to try to get them to gain leverage in the talks going into the June 12th summit.
But does it make you think, well, actually, they're not going to denuclearize? You know, when he's talking about Libya, they saw what happened to Gaddafi. That's not going to be a very tempting offer for somebody who's thinking about negotiating with your president.
Well, I think this is North Korea making much ado about nothing, trying to gain the leverage because they knew about these types of the routines and the practices that we were going to be going into ahead of time. And all of a sudden, they're making this big deal of it. I do think we're going to see continuing. But then again, we are dealing with Kim Jong-un. And as your previous guest just stated, this is Donald Trump, President Trump. And so you can never actually expect the traditional things to be happening. But I don't think this knocks it typically off course. I think this is just a part of the North Korean playbook that they've done in the past. And the talks will continue.
Balbina Huang, would you put money on this going ahead in June, the June 12th summit?
Well, yes and no. Look, it's not necessarily much ado about nothing. This is actually a lot more sophisticated than that. North Korea is making very clear that the Libya model itself is off the table. That doesn't mean necessarily that denuclearization itself isn't. And I think what North Korea is making clear is they're willing to deal with President Trump. And I think President Trump, again, is separate from Bolton. Now, Bolton has a very specific idea about processes, about CVID,
right.
But President Trump, I think, would be happy with, for example, just taking, 5 nuclear bombs, loading them on Air Force One, and saying, here, I got denuclearization.
So, Scotty,
that's very different.
Scotty Nell Hughes, was this John Bolton speaking to Donald Trump through the television, if you like, and saying, hang on, don't go too soft here. We have to have a pretty hardline approach, whether President Trump agrees with that or not?
Well, this is how John Bolton usually is. He does take a hardline approach to things. But truth of all, it is, just like North Korea has done this in the past before, and they have a history of trying to gain leverage by doing tactics like this and maneuvers like this. This is exactly what President Trump and his administration is. You can't count on anything. And I agree, not necessarily much ado about nothing. But once again, this is all what you would expect going into the chaos. And just having these talks and this summit on June 12th shows a bigger advance than we've had with any of the past administrations.
But you know that people are saying this is about bragging rights, and actually Donald Trump probably overplayed his hand. He went a little bit too confident into this, and North Korea is coming out on top at the moment.
Either way, we've gotten a lot farther with President Trump than we have the past few administrations. So he already has the upper hand in the bragging moments that he has. But it's not about bragging right now. It's about true making people safe on the Korean Peninsula, as well as stabilizing the area for the rest of the international marketplace. So I think right now it's not necessarily about bragging rights. It's about actually getting to the table on June 12th. And when both are trying to show who's the bigger person, what John Bolton did today, I think, was actually just another move to show North Korea we are the ones that actually have the bigger power right now.
It's really great to have had you both. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.